Dana Perino is a name millions recognize, but how well do you really know her? Beyond the polished TV appearances and the history-making role as White House press secretary, lies a story filled with surprising twists, hidden struggles, and achievements that few ever talk about. Today, we pull back the curtain to reveal the untold side of Dana Perino, the facts, the secrets, and the moments that shaped her into the woman the world sees today. When a pair of shoes flew at President George W. Bush in Iraq, the world saw him duck and dodge in real time. But what most people missed was the shocking moment that followed. His press secretary, Dana Perino, was struck hard by a steel microphone, leaving her with a painful black eye and tears in her eyes. Washington laughed at the irony, but for Dana, it was just one bizarre twist in a career full of unexpected and surprising moments. Her husband once spent a night in jail over their dog, and her beloved pet would go on to steal more headlines than she ever expected. But behind the polished image of Dana Perino lies a life of hidden struggles and surprising twists that few truly know. At just 6 years old, standing outside the White House on a family trip, Dana made a bold promise to her parents: "One day, I'll work here." This wasn't a passing childhood fantasy, it was a vision she carried with unshakable determination. More than 2 decades later, she didn't just step inside those walls, she rose to the very podium, becoming America's 26th White House press secretary, and shattering barriers as the first Republican woman to ever hold the role. For a girl from rural Wyoming with no political ties, the chances of making it to Washington seemed impossible, but Dana Perino's determination would prove otherwise. Born on May 9, 1972, in the small town of Evanston, Wyoming, home to just over 10,000 people at the time, her story began far from the power corridors of D.C. When she was just 2 years old, her family moved to Parker, Colorado, in search of better opportunities. Back then, Parker was a quiet, working-class town, but it instilled in Dana the values of grit, perseverance, and ambition. Her roots ran deep in a blend of rugged American spirit and rich Italian heritage. Her great-grandparents had journeyed from Italy, carrying with them resilience, community, and strength. Those very qualities became the foundation of Dana's character, shaping the woman who would one day make history. Independence, loyalty, and kindness, these were the values that shaped Dana Perino long before she ever stepped into the political spotlight. Every summer, she spent time at her grandfather's ranch in Newcastle, Wyoming, where life was anything but easy. At just 4 a.m., Dana would be up, helping move cattle through the biting cold and unpredictable terrain. It wasn't glamorous, but it was priceless. Ranch life taught her that optimism wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Those early mornings built her resilience, teaching her to face obstacles head-on, stay positive when the odds were stacked against her, and never back down. That same strength carried into every stage of her life. Before politics, Dana was a gymnast, dedicating hours each day to perfecting her craft. The sport demanded discipline, balance, and poise under pressure, skills that would prove invaluable years later. In gymnastics, just like in the White House briefing room, the world was watching, and mistakes weren't an option. The focus and confidence she developed in those early years became the foundation that helped her stand tall when the spotlight, and the pressure, was at its brightest. Regardless of whether she encountered challenging inquiries or national crises, Dana maintained her poise. At Ponderosa High School in Parker, she unearthed her passion for communication. She became a member of debate clubs and participated in various competitions. Through these experiences, she honed her skills in constructing arguments, influencing others, and articulating her thoughts clearly. Her educators recognized her talent and motivated her to set ambitious goals. By the time she completed her studies, Dana was already certain about her aspiration for a career in media and politics. The journey she embarked on would eventually lead her to that podium in the White House. During her college years, Dana balanced a rigorous schedule. She worked the early morning shift from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. as a country music DJ at KCCY-FM 96.9 in Colorado Springs. While her peers were resting, she kept the station vibrant during the solitary night hours. She had to remain alert, take song requests, and ensure the airwaves were always active. After her shift, she frequently headed straight to class or debate practice. Additionally, she was required to play Billy Ray Cyrus's Achy Breaky Heart at the start of every hour. This meant playing it 12 times each shift, totaling over 48 times a week during her 4-hour slot. It was exhausting, but it instilled in her a sense of patience and resilience. Dana graduated in 1994 from Colorado State University PBLO, earning a degree in mass communications along with minors in political science and Spanish. She also distinguished herself on the debate team. She competed nationwide, acquiring the ability to think quickly and speak powerfully. These competencies formed the groundwork for her future achievements. Even as a student, Dana embraced significant challenges. She hosted Capital Journal on KTSC-TV, focusing on Colorado politics. She produced Standoff, a program that addressed contentious public issues. These roles were not simple. They required sharp intellect, swift decision-making, and unwavering composure. She learned to manage technical difficulties, difficult guests, and live broadcasts. This was precisely the type of pressure she would later encounter in Washington. After completing her undergraduate studies, Dana continued to push forward. She sought a master's degree in public affairs reporting at the University of Illinois, Springfield. She covered the Illinois Capitol as a reporter for WCIA-TV at the same time. She completed strict deadlines every day, followed up with lawmakers, and reported on complicated topics. She gained a profound awareness of politics and the media as a result of the challenging experience. Dana Perino didn't enter politics with a reputation or a lot of authority. She found work as a staff assistant for Congressman Scott McInnes in Washington, D.C., in the mid-1990s, but it was not glamorous. Dana's days consisted of scheduling meetings, processing mail, and taking phone calls. She soon realized how difficult life in politics might be. A person's career could be lost for even minor errors. The compensation was low, and the hours were long, typically 12 hours a day. Dana, however, picked things up quickly. Most important were discretion and loyalty. One thoughtless utterance might ruin a campaign or a career. She learned how to live in a world where office politics and inflated egos were the norm throughout these formative years. She also had the opportunity to observe the writing of bills and the closing of negotiations. For most political science students, it was the kind of practical instruction they could only imagine. Her opinions on politics were permanently impacted by this difficult and unvarnished experience. As her time with McInnes came to an end, Dana made a significant advancement. Congressman Dan Schaefer, who chaired the House Commerce Subcommittee on Energy and Power, hired her as his press secretary. This was no ordinary task. Some of the most contentious topics of the day were discussed by Schaefer's committee. Energy policy, the environment, and deregulation. All of a sudden, Dana had to deal with words that had the power to change public opinion or markets. Sometimes in just a few minutes, she had to make difficult subjects like nuclear safety and renewable energy understandable to everyone. Energy policy was tense in the late 1990s. California experiences blackouts. There was intense discussion about the Kyoto Protocol. In the center of it all was Dana. She assisted Schaefer in getting ready for difficult hearings and live television. It was a demanding profession that required quick thinking. She mastered the art of saying the perfect thing at the right moment. In 1998, everything was different. Dana had a big decision to make after Schaefer announced his retirement. Her future in Washington seems dubious due to the resignation of her boss. Then she startled them all. She departed the country at the age of barely 26. After meeting Peter McMahon on a plane, she relocated to England to wed him. Nobody had anticipated this. To concentrate on her personal life, she left behind a promising career. It was a daring move. At the time, very few young women in politics ventured to quit the game. She learned about balancing and global politics during her year in the UK. She returned with a new perspective. She quickly returned to working for the government, initially at the Department of Justice and later at the White House. Her destiny was shaped in ways she never could have predicted by that choice she made when she was unsure. Dana Perino took a plane from Denver to Chicago on August 17, 1997. At the age of 25, she concentrated on advancing her political career. Everything changed on that day. She was ambitious and had recently secured a position on Capitol Hill. However, destiny had other ideas. The last people to board were Dana and Peter McMahon, a 43-year-old British businessman. 13A and 13C were the only remaining seats. In the end, they sat next to each other. Dana was an American. Peter was an Englishman. Their ages were 18 years apart. Although there was little probability of this meeting, it did occur and it permanently altered their lives. Peter's British accent immediately caught Dana's attention. She noticed that he had no wedding band on. She took notice of that. Peter has already been married twice. England was his home. Dana was a young woman who had just begun her career. The age difference was enormous. It sparked conversation. Dana, however, was unable to deny her emotions. He drew her in. She even prayed, asking whether this person could truly be her match. Peter's stories captivated her, but she couldn't stop thinking, he's 18 years older, lives in England, has been married twice. How can this be right? He talked about all the places he had gone, his business, and his early years in the Royal Air Force. His life felt new and thrilling. They talked for the entire 2.5-hour flight. They seemed to have known one another for a long time. They talked about their dreams, their anxieties, and politics. To their mutual astonishment, they became more open to one another. They sensed something extraordinary had started as the jet touched down. When their families learned of the relationship, they were taken aback. And it took Peter 10 days to get in touch with Dana. She began to suspect that he had lost interest. However, that flame rekindled after he sent an email. They got into a long-distance romance. It wasn't simple. They lived in separate nations and time zones. However, they managed to make it work. 11 months after their initial encounter, Dana and Peter were married in 1998. They kept their family in the dark. Friends weren't invited. In England, they eloped. There were 2 unidentified witnesses. The civil ceremony was quiet. Dana abandoned her job in Washington. She risked everything for love. People were in disbelief. Peter's 2 previous marriages, the age difference, and the secrecy all seemed so abrupt. Despite being one of the most difficult choices she has ever made, Dana referred to it as the best one. She started a new life in a different nation, leaving behind everything she had achieved. Following the nuptials, Dana left politics. She first relocated to England before settling in San Diego. She made a fresh start in San Diego. She spent 3 years working in high-tech public affairs. She worked at the Porter Nolly Convergence Group, among other places. It was a period of development. She gained new abilities. She had to deal with fresh difficulties. Together with Peter, she created a new life. She was strengthened by the event. For Dana Perino, everything changed after the September 11, 2001 attacks. She watched in disbelief as the jet struck the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, just like millions of Americans. It was more than horror, though, for her. The call was to action. At the time, she was residing outside of Washington, D.C. However, she recovered and assumed a crucial role by November 2001. She joined the Department of Justice as a spokesman. This was more than a job. It positioned her squarely in the center of America's reaction to the most deadly assault on its territory. The nation was afraid. History was being shaped by the decisions the government was making. Dana was also present to assist in educating the public about those choices. She had no desire to further her profession when she relocated from Colorado to Washington. It has to do with duty. She felt compelled to assist, like many Americans do. But in such a perilous moment, few would come so close to the true power. Dana had two of the most difficult years of her life, from 2001 to 2003. She was working at the DOJ at the height of the War on Terror, which had just began. It wasn't only information she had to convey. She had to control her perplexity, rage, and dread. The DOJ was making important choices. A military order ordered by President Bush in November 2001 allowed the government to detain foreign nationals accused of terrorism without a trial. Even seasoned legal professionals were taken aback by this. Dana had to give the public and media an explanation for these actions. Each word she used was deliberate. Tension was always present in the DOJ press office. Chaos could result with a single incorrect utterance. But Dana remained composed. She has a reputation for being able to remain focused in the face of even the most trying circumstances. Dealing with the media following the passage of the USA Patriot Act was one of her most difficult assignments. That was quick. On October 23, 2001, Congress introduced it, and on October 26, President Bush signed it. There was only one senator who opposed it. The statute granted the government broad new authority. It may keep an eye on bank records, emails, and phone conversations. With minimal judicial oversight, it may track suspected terrorists. Concerns were raised concerning the privacy implications of this. However, a lot of the act was kept under wraps. That further complicated Dana's work. She had to respond to challenging inquiries without giving too much away. She was managing the controversy surrounding Guantanamo Bay and military commissions at the same time. These policies were more than simply abstract concepts. They had an impact on lives. Although they sparked intense discussion, Dana was able to represent the DOJ without inflaming public anxiety. Her self-control maintained the message's concentration and clarity. In 2003, Dana Perino started her path to the White House. She began working at the Council on Environmental Quality that year as Associate Director of Communications. America was in a tumultuous period. Environmental policy generated heated discussions. Everyone was thinking about public land use, energy independence, and climate change. Both domestically and internationally, the Bush administration's environmental policies were heavily criticized. Dana was in the center of it all because of her employment. She was in charge of communications for the organization that made sure federal activities were examined for their effects on the environment. This required addressing issues such as opposing the Kyoto Protocol and oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Under her supervision, even journalists found their jobs. She didn't think twice about calling editors if she saw something incorrect or harmful. Dana was in the middle of things, and the stakes were high. She wasn't merely restating conversation starters. They were formed by Dana. She contributed to the development of the administration's messaging as the debate over climate change intensified. She cited economic hardship as the reason the U.S. withdrew from the Kyoto Protocol, but she also had to weigh that against growing concerns about global warming. She assisted in implementing the 20 in 10 initiative in 2007. The goal was to promote alternative fuels and improved fuel efficiency in order to reduce gasoline consumption by 20% in 10 years. Every single word and phrase was important. Dana also ensured that the message was understood. She reached farther than that. She soon collaborated with all federal agencies involved in natural resources, energy, and the environment. They spoke with Dana before making any major announcements. She kept everything consistent, aligned their messages, and went over their strategies. The extent of her power was so great that even outdoor periodicals avoided conflict with her office. She was guiding communications throughout the government, not just controlling them. Everything altered once more on March 31, 2006. Dana was elevated by President Bush to the position of Deputy Press Secretary and Assistant to the President. This was more than just a prize. It was an indication of the level of trust she had gained. She was now squarely in front of the media, answering their most challenging inquiries about topics like hurricane response and energy prices. Congress was debating new legislation while climate change was making headlines. Dana, however, remained composed, ready, and focused. She created history a little more than a year later. Dana Perino was appointed the 26th White House press secretary on September 14, 2007. She was only the second female employee. Her journey was unusual. Evanston, Wyoming, is where she grew up. She began her career in local radio and covered the Illinois Capitol before becoming the highest-ranking presidential communications official. She was born in 1972. She was commended by President Bush for simplifying difficult subjects for Americans. The moment of her appointment was significant. Up until that point, there had only been one female press secretary and 24 males. However, Dana assumed the role amid one of the most trying periods for a press secretary. Since 2003, the war in Iraq had continued to drag on. Support for it had fallen precipitously by 2007. The media was combative. They sought information on troop surges, casualties, and military tactics. Big banks began to fail in the midst of the 2008 financial crisis, according to early indicators. Dana was under increasing pressure. Her work involved more than simply restating the administration's statements. She had to justify difficult decisions that were frequently controversial. She wasn't treated well by the media. They were occasionally antagonistic and doubtful. Dana acknowledged that it was annoying that she couldn't provide the information that reporters requested. But she maintained her composure. Additionally, she occasionally vented her frustrations in little, impish ways behind the podium, out of sight, such as giving a reporter the finger without their noticing, a fact she later revealed in her book. The Globe witnessed an unforgettable moment on December 14, 2008. During his final trip to Iraq as president, George W. Bush was addressing a press conference in Baghdad. Suddenly, Muntadar al-Zaidi, an Iraqi journalist, got up. He hurled each pair of shoes directly at President Bush. He flung the first shoe while shouting, "This is a farewell kiss from the Iraqi people, you dog." He then hurled the second shoe, saying, "This is for the widows and orphans and all those killed in Iraq." One of the harshest insults in the Arab East is tossing someone a shoe. This wasn't only an assault. The message of protest was loud. Bush avoided getting both shoes. They were only inches away from him. The scene was shown live on television to a global audience. The video went viral and sparked heated discussions regarding the war in Iraq. Al-Zaidi was seized, kicked, and hauled away by security personnel. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison but was released after 9 months. The shoes gained notoriety. Museums eventually acquired copies of these. Others were prompted to protest similarly by the act. Amidst all of this pandemonium, another event occurred that most people were not immediately aware of. Near the front of the room was White House Press Secretary Dana Perino. One member of the Secret Service knocked over a steel boom microphone stand as they hurried in to protect Bush. It turned and struck Perino squarely in the right eye. The agony was sudden and intense. Everyone later observed that she had a black eye and edema. Perino had to sob as he left the room. Bush urged the doctor to check on her after noticing her injuries, but Perino seemed unfazed. She remained with the team, continued to perform her duties, and even responded to inquiries about what had transpired. People thought it was hilarious that the Bush team now had a real black eye as a result of all the criticism they had received during the Iraq War. Perino didn't slow down despite the agony. She attended all of the briefings and events and followed the president's itinerary. Her black eye was noticeable when she returned to Washington. Photographers and reporters noticed it right away. Making fun of the injury, Perino referred to it as her Baghdad shiner. Although many appreciated her bravery, she sought to move on and joked about it. She gave advice on how to remain resilient in the face of adversity. The entire incident served as a reminder that political work, particularly in volatile environments like Iraq, can present unforeseen risks. The way it was handled in the official record of the time shocked a lot of people. The audience disruption and pandemonium were referred to in the White House transcript. The shoes, the yelling, and the ensuing altercation were not mentioned. Bush also attempted to minimize it. The public and media remembered the reality, and he joked, "If you want the facts, it's a size 10 shoe that he threw, but people saw through it." That day came to represent the conflicts and difficulties that characterized Bush's presidency. It was hard to miss Perino's black eye back in Washington. Images of her with the bruise behind her eye quickly went viral. It was interpreted as a symbol of the difficult months that Bush had left in office. Commentators noted that the administration now had a serious black mark following years of criticism regarding Iraq. In interviews, Perino herself discussed it while maintaining a positive attitude throughout. She felt sorry for the injury. She received a lot of accolades for remaining composed and steady during it all. Perino's subsequent action after leaving the White House in January 2009 was equally noteworthy. She became a political commentator on Fox News in a matter of months. She started hosting a new show called The Five in 2011. After Glenn Beck left, the show was supposed to step in, but it ended up being a hit. More than 2.5 million humans watched it frequently. Perino's mix of humor and sharp wondering helped make the display an achievement. By way of 2021, she became additionally co-anchoring the US newsroom, proving herself as one in all Fox's pinnacle names. In 2009, Dana Perino changed into Beaton. As a former White House press secretary, she changed into flooded with requests from younger women requesting advice. There just wasn't enough time for countless coffee conferences. This is when she, at the side of Dee Martin and Jamie Zuock, got here up with something new. They called it Manuta mentoring. The idea turned into easy however great. Pace dating for mentorship. Instead of lengthy drawn-out periods, ladies met pinnacle female leaders in brief 10-minute rounds. The primary event in Washington, D.C. that year had 15 mentors and 45 ments. It became a hit. Quickly, this model unfolded throughout the USA, supporting hundreds of women hook up with leaders in politics, law, media, and enterprise. A single nighttime could provide extra steerage than months of conventional networking. Awards followed and other industries started copying the layout. Dana Perino's position in reshaping mentorship changed into now clear. On the identical time, Dana's Hungarian Vizsla Jasper quietly have become a celebrity. In the beginning, Dana just shared his snapshots on social media, trying to connect to her target audience in a lighter manner. But quickly, Jasper was more well-known than Dana herself. Human beings in Principal Park would prevent her, not to mention Haya to the former press secretary, however to greet Jasper or snap an image. He had become America's dog. His adventures, from seashore trips to sidecar motorcycle rides, had fans anywhere. In 2016, Dana wrote an e-book about him called Allow Me Tell You About Jasper. Whilst Jasper died of cancer at age 9 on September 4, 2021, the reaction was overwhelming. Hundreds dispatched messages of sympathy. Dana's tribute went viral. Fanatics still honor his reminiscence each year. And when Percy, her next Vizsla, arrived, he too was welcomed with love. Now not all of the circle of relatives' memories were heartwarming. One day, Dana's husband, Peter McMahon, ended up in jail. It commenced with something small. He had walked their Vizsla, Henry, without a leash in Washington, D.C. He got a price tag and forgot to pay it. That small mistake led to a court docket date he missed. A bench warrant accompanied. Before they knew it, Peter turned into in custody for a day. The story was so peculiar that fans could not stop talking about it. Dana shared it with humor, showing how easy it is for small things to spiral out of manage. The story also sparked new conversations approximately leash laws and pet responsibilities. However, existence delivered harder challenges, too. In latest years, human beings observed that Dana's non-public lifestyles was beneath stress. Reports began to floor approximately fitness problems confronted via Peter McMahon. Even though Dana saved maximum details personal, she admitted that it were tough balancing her paintings and being a caregiver tested her strength. Fanatics favorite how she stayed dedicated to both family and career. Her story opened up wider discussions about the emotional struggles of caregiving, intellectual health, and the pressure public figures face. Still, Dana's paintings' life in no way slowed down. She co-anchors the US newsroom and co-hosts The Five, two of Fox Information's top shows. The Five frequently beats even top time programs in ratings. In 2023, she released Perino on politics, including a podcast to her busy existence. On the identical time, she kept Manuta mentoring alive and thriving. She found time to talk at universities, meetings, and corporate events, sharing her classes on leadership and resilience. Dana Perino became recognized now not just as a political commentator, however, as a woman who kept going no matter